Now to Japan, where the cabinet has approved a record $58 billion defense budget amid rising tensions with China. The plan focuses on coastal defenses, strike-back missiles and unmanned drones, which is part of Tokyo's push to strengthen its military role. China has condemned this very move, saying Japan's growing military capabilities and recent space developments are destabilizing the region. For more on this, I'm joined by Asia political analyst Ross Darrell Feingold. Ross, a pleasure to have you on the show. So why do you think Japan has approved its largest ever defense budget at this particular time?
A number of factors led to this proposal. One, frankly, is pressure from the Trump administration. The first Trump administration put tremendous pressure on Japan, as well as other security partners in Asia, like South Korea and the Philippines, to significantly spend more on their own defense. That doesn't mean that the Trump administration is walking away from its treaty obligations, although there's always lots of criticism and speculation in that regard. But the Trump administration has made very clear, we have a treaty obligation, but we expect you to do your part. The other factors are also quite straightforward, which is both China and North Korea present an ever-increasing risk to the security of Japan. And it's understandable, despite the rhetoric that comes out of China or North Korea, it's understandable that Japan is going to respond to that by spending more on their own defense.
And it's really interesting because, like you say, there's many reasons for why this has happened. But how likely is China to respond aggressively to Japan's growing military capabilities and also the space initiatives?
Well, one of the challenges here is, first, we have to understand we're in an arms race here in the Asia-Pacific region, whether that's Northeast Asia as well as Southeast Asia, and also South Asia between India and Pakistan. So the entire region is now in an arms race. But one of the interesting things about this, and it goes to your question, is these countries are going to continue doing what they're doing. So whatever criticism Japan makes verbally about the threat that they perceive from North Korea or China, that doesn't change what those countries do. And similarly, Japan spending more on its defense, or South Korea or Taiwan or the Philippines, that doesn't change what China does. China's going to continue to spend more on its own defense and investing in its capabilities as well. Again, and that leads us to the situation where we are in an arms race in this part of the world. So unfortunately, in many ways, the countries are talking past each other. They're going to continue to invest more in their defense, and the potential for an armed conflict does increase.
And the US has approved a massive arms sale to Taipei of more than $10 billion. I find it interesting, and I want to ask you, why is America backing Japan militarily when it doesn't recognize Taiwan diplomatically?
Yeah, there are a number of complex issues that come into play with that as well. The U.S. does have a treaty obligation to defend Japan. That is abundantly clear. And again, despite the criticisms of President Trump about his willingness to fulfill those obligations, whether it's NATO or whether it's Japan and South Korea and the Philippines, he will. I think we have to assume that he understands what the U.S. obligations are. At the same time, the U.S. expects a partner like Japan to do its part and to spend more on its national defense. So President Trump's team is basically saying to Japan that we will do our part, but we expect you to do your part as well. And we think that for a very long period of time, you've underfunded your defense. And Japan is responding to that. Not just the current prime minister, she's only been in the job for 2 months, but her predecessors as well, going back to Abe Shinzo and his successors, leading up to the new Prime Minister Takaichi. The recent Japan prime ministers have all sought to increase defense spending. Now, with regard to Taiwan, unlike Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, the U.S. does not have a treaty obligation to defend Taiwan. But there is a domestic law in the United States, it's called the Taiwan Relations Act, which requires the United States to make available defensive weapons to Taiwan. And the United States has consistently done that for many decades. And this is basically more of the same. The scope might be larger, the scale might be bigger, but the United States has basically said to Taiwan, similar to what it says to Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, you have to do your part to defend yourself. And the Taiwan government is responding to that by saying, if you'll make weapons available to us, we will buy them.
And I think the big question, Ross, that lots of people are thinking of, and I know it's quite a basic question, but are we going to see Chinese military intervention in Taiwan right now? Can we expect a conflict on the horizon?
You know, this is frankly very scary, especially speaking as somebody who lives in Taiwan. But what I frequently tell my Taiwan friends is you have to assume that there will be armed conflict because the Chinese government has not given up that possibility. They've made that very clear. They've said, we hope for peaceful unification, but there are certain circumstances under which the Chinese side has said they will use military force. So the right thing for the Taiwan side to do is to prepare accordingly. It's not to assume, some people say, oh, China's a paper tiger. There'll be people who say that, well, China's economy is not growing as fast as it did 10, 15, 20 years ago, which is true. Or there are some people who say that China has corruption problems. That's true. There are some people who say that the generals at the top leadership of the People Liberation's Army have been repeatedly changed in recent years, including the defense minister, which is true as well. But that doesn't change the fact that China has invested enormous amounts of money in its military capabilities. Their capabilities continue to improve. As time goes by, they continue to improve their technology, the ability to conduct joint combat operations across the different theaters and across air and sea and land and the rocket force and cyber. So anyone here in Taiwan who doesn't treat that threat seriously is being a fool. And thus Taiwan really needs to prepare accordingly. And President Lai here in Taiwan is responding to that by proposing significant increases in defense spending.
Ross Darrell Feingold, absolutely fascinating to have you on the show. As always, thank you for your time.
Thank you.